The former chief of the military's Western Command vehemently denies forging an alleged secret deal with China on the Ayungin Shoal dispute. During a Senate panel's probe into the alleged wiretapping of the Chinese embassy in Manila, Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos admits receiving a phone call from the Chinese military attaché early this year. He says he spoke to a certain Senior Colonel Lee. In his opening statement, Carlos categorically denies entering any deal with China nor discussing the alleged new model during the phone call.
I did not forge any agreement at the level and magnitude that would bind our two countries for the long term and redefine. I did not enter into any secret deals that will compromise the interests of our country. We did not discuss the new model. We did not discuss the term common understanding, new model. Were not part of our conversation, Mr. Chair.
According to a media report, the Chinese embassy presented a supposed transcript of the conversation between Carlos and a Chinese diplomat, claiming they also have an audio recording of the exchange pertaining to the so-called new model in the Ayungin Shoal dispute. Carlos was removed as chief of Westcom after this development. Embattled Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos says he did not consent to being recorded during a phone call with a Chinese diplomat. The former chief of the military's Western Command reveals this during the Senate Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification and Reconciliation's probe into the alleged wiretapping of the Chinese embassy in Manila. Republic Act number 4200 prohibits the recording of any private conversation without the consent of all parties.
So I have not given my consent to record to anybody, and I have not been asked for permission to do so, Mr. Chair. We were discussing possible ways to de-escalate or to reduce the tension in my area of operation. Plus, at the same time, sir, it was New Year. When I received the call, I thought it was just going to greet me Happy New Year.
A media report earlier said the Chinese embassy presented a supposed transcript of the conversation between Carlos and a Chinese diplomat. The Chinese embassy also claimed that it has an audio recording of the exchange pertaining to the supposed new model of Ayungin Shoal. Carlos was removed as chief of Westcom after this issue came out. During the hearing, Carlos confirms that the conversation in the audio recording took place, but he denies that it has something to do with a new model and common understanding in the Ayungin Shoal, as purported by the Chinese authorities. For the Department of Justice, the Chinese embassy has violated the laws of the country. DOJ Senior State Counsel Attorney Freddy Ganchun says the agency takes with a grain of salt the Chinese embassy's claims.
This is the first time, of course, that we are hearing the sworn testimony of Vice Admiral Carlos, because we are also not sure before of the truthfulness, the authenticity of the transcript, Mr. Chair. So we don't know, but we have a testimony now that we can use that indeed there was a call and it was recorded. Anything that comes from our friend, from our neighbor, Mr. Chair, we treat it very carefully, Mr. Chair, because we are in the middle of a fight for the West Philippine Sea.
In light of continued Chinese aggression in Philippine waters, Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo says the relationship between Manila and Beijing is, quote, a bit choppy. In a press conference on Wednesday, May 22, Manalo says this is due to the many issues which have come up recently, noting the Philippines' effort to assert its rights in its exclusive economic zone. Although the relationship between China and the Philippines is not as smooth as it could be, Manalo says it is not yet at the point that it would downgrade. He reiterates both countries have always agreed to manage disputes through diplomatic means. China's continued aggression in the Philippine waters is born out of a sweeping claim over most of the South China Sea, including the West Philippine Sea. However, this claim has long been dismissed by a 2016 arbitral ruling. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo says China's new policy to detain without trial foreigners it deems illegally crossing its borders is unacceptable. In a press conference, Manalo says China's policy has no legal basis, noting the new rule would affect other countries as well. He also hopes other countries would speak up about China's new policy. An article published by the South China Morning Post on May 16 detailed the new regulation, which will take effect on June 15, 2024. It says the China Coast Guard can hold for up to 60 days without trial suspects deemed illegally crossing borders. China claims the majority of the South China Sea, which overlaps with the West Philippine Sea. But a 2016 arbitral ruling ruled in favor of Manila, effectively dismissing China's sweeping claims. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa says the new COVID-19 variant FLiRT may already be in the Philippines, but notes it is not serious. In a palace briefing, Herbosa was asked if this strain is now present in the country as Singapore grapples with a COVID-19 surge due to the new variant. Herbosa says it is possible the new variant is already in the country, but emphasizes it is classified as a variant under monitoring.
It's possible, although the variant isn't serious. That's why it's only classified as a variant under monitoring. Although I'm watching the events unfold in Singapore, because I think in Singapore has reported an increase in FLiRT, not flirtations, but FLiRT, the new variant of variant under monitoring. It's a variant under monitoring. So hindi siya variant of concern, variant under monitoring.
The Department of Health is observing the situation in Singapore. Herbosa adds that he will not endorse travel restrictions. For Herbosa, it is better to focus on what he calls preventable killer ailments such as heart attack, diabetes, and cancer rather than COVID-19. Herbosa says it is important for people to learn how to prevent heart attacks and strokes, control hypertension and diabetes, among others. However, Herbosa says COVID-19 is similar to the common cold. He notes how the public has gotten immunization from the vaccines that have been deployed.
Nagkataon lang in 2020, there was a variant that caused very severe illness, yung COVID-19 pneumonia, that caused the death of even healthcare workers, nurses, and elderly people. And over time, what happened is we got immunization from the vaccines that were developed then, but the virus itself also mutated to a weaker strain. So if you notice lately, even if people get COVID, magpa-positive sila, pero 3 days, 5 days, magaling na uli sila.
The House of Representatives approves the divorce bill on third and final reading. During the plenary session on Wednesday, May 22, House Bill number 9349, or the Absolute Divorce Act, was approved with 126 lawmakers voting in the affirmative, 109 in the negative, and 20 abstentions. The bill was approved on third reading 2 months after it was referred to the plenary by the House Committee on Population and Family Relations, and a week after lawmakers voted to pass it on second reading. Under the Absolute Divorce Act, grounds for absolute divorce include physical violence directed against the petitioner, a common child or the petitioner's child, the respondent's drug addiction, habitual alcoholism or chronic gambling, and homosexuality of the respondent, among others. Bamban Mayor Alice Go says she was unaware that her foreign business partners have criminal records. During Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and the Gender Equalities hearing, Chair Senator Risa Hontiveros discloses that Go's co-incorporators in the Baofu Land Development Incorporated included Filipino national Rachel Joan Malonzo Carrion, Cypriot national Huang Ziyang, Chinese national Zhang Ryujin, and Dominican national Bao Yinglin. According to Hontiveros, these individuals are involved in money laundering and other criminal activities. But Go denies knowing about her partner's background, explaining that she only learned about their criminal records through Hontiveros' social media post on Tuesday, May 21.
Your Honor, nalaman ko po kahapon to sa Facebook post niyo po. After ko po malaman, sinerge ko po sila. Ang kausap ko po dyan sa Baofu po ay yung si Zhang Ziyang. Yung dalawa po, hindi ko po sila nakausap. Kahapon po nakita ko po doon sa Facebook post niyo po na sila po ay money launderer po sa Singapore at nag-research po ako through Google din po at nakita ko nga po na yung dalawa po ay sangkot nga po doon sa money laundering po sa Singapore. At
Go says that after divesting from the company in 2022, she has not heard from them since. Hontiveros then blasts Go for not conducting due diligence, questioning how she could not even know about her own business partners' backgrounds.
Hindi ba dapat kung papasok kayo sa ganyang kalaking negosyo, napakalaki kumpara sa mga nauna nyo ng mga negosyo, nagtatanong nga yung mga tao, ha? Mula piggery papuntang Pogo, parang ang laking multiplied many times over. Hindi ba dapat nag-due diligence kayo?
In response, Go merely reiterates that she only had contact with Huang Ziyang, who is also an identified fugitive being hunted by the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission. Here's the latest roundup of today's top stories. Former Westcom Chief Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos vehemently denies forging an alleged secret deal with China on the Ayungin Shoal dispute. Bamban Mayor Alice Go accepts Senator Raffy Tulfo's challenge for her to undergo lie detector test. And President Bongbong Marcos sets the school year 2024-2025 from July 29 this year to April 15 next year. These are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.